So what are we talking about today?
Well, I think it was just going to be a general catch up, but I had this idea that we would sort of just talk about, maybe some of the stuff that we'd learnt, and that you sort of feel like it would have been good to have learnt earlier. Not that sort of stuff that you should have done straight away or whatever. And it doesn't need to be big things, but that I've thought of a couple of things that for me that I, you know, that it's just like I should have been doing this stuff. Or when you work it out, you're like, yeah, okay.
Damn it. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. And I think, I guess one of the things around that is, especially if other people jump on or other people have ideas in the chat or anything like that, it's that it might lead to some sort of topics that we can talk about in the future that are, we can dig deep into.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if anyone else has got any sort of thoughts on that sort of stuff or.
Well, hit me with yours, man. You've probably thought about it a bit more than.
All right.
Than us, but yeah.
Okay, well, so I guess the first thing for me, the first obvious thing, and this is like a web thing, right? And that's care plans. Like I wish that I started doing web stuff and I didn't really get onto that recurring revenue sort of stuff for a long time. There was probably like a year year and a half where I was just sort of, landing projects and not worrying about trying to convert to care plans or think about hosting or anything like that you can kind of add some money to.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's not a big topic, or maybe it is, but once I started to do that, hello, how are you?
Am I muted? I'm on. I'm good. I'm good. I'm a little late. It's nighttime here, so I wasn't quite.
No, all good. Welcome. Yeah, so we're just going to talk about. Oh, you've got a drink. Don't do that to us. So we're going to talk quickly about maybe some things that we wish we'd learned earlier. And then I was just sort of saying, when I started with web, wasn't doing care plans, and that's good, easy, recurring revenue, and it's minimal effort. And I sort of wish that I'd done that earlier. It's not too complicated of a topic, but I don't know if anyone wants to sort of delve into that or anything to add.
Yeah, care plans always were critical. Thankfully, when I started doing web stuff, it was like straight into WordPress from the get-go. Yeah. And everyone I'd spoken to had already spoken about the whole maintenance concept of like maintaining a website and charging for hosting and all that sort of stuff. So I did it from the start. Where I do regret is when I picked up a business partner and we sort of went a different direction with web stuff, and we started doing very custom flat file CMSs like non-WordPress. He dismissed the concept of care plans and maintenance, and he was like, no, you just charge it for basic hosting. He didn't really care about the quality of the hosting either, which was a big problem for me. And he's like, yeah, and people don't want to pay for maintenance, but then you get them for when they want to make changes to their site. And I'm like, oh no, that I like getting them for changes to the site, but I don't like relying on them, when they want something, hitting them for a couple of grand. And that's your only choice. So
and you get that anyway.
Yeah. So
can one of you kind of, for somebody like me who is just starting to do more web, what is a care plan like? Ooh. Walk that out. What does that kind of look like?
Good question. So there's probably two ways that people talk about it, and there's probably two extremes. And one is that some people bundle services in with what they're doing. So basically what you think of a care plan is like looking after everything. It's essentially, to me, my care plan is almost like insurance. Like you don't need to worry about anything. Something breaks, if an update goes wrong, if your site goes down, like I'm here for it. The good thing is that it rarely happens. And so you're charging a monthly fee, which has
it can happen though. Just as a heads up, it can happen, and has happened to me like once or twice, and it's not a fun time.
Yeah.
But you're making money, so it's all right.
I guess a few sort of general things with that too is if you've got the same sort of stack or the same sort of process with stuff, if something does break on one site, chances are it's the same thing on all sites. And if you've got a process like you can roll back, something that's broken, that's really how you want to sort of handle it. But basically that's what it is. You're sort of charging people for that insurance and for being the person that manages everything for them.
So I'm about to do a guest post for the admin bar about this, and more about selling care plans specifically. But basically, like Corey said, you've got your maintenance level as your first tier. So that's like basically, hitting the update button for them on their sites, and making sure it's updated, retaining some backups so if something goes wrong, you can roll back a backup. My basic ones include malware scans daily. Doing the updates generally once a week, every second week, stuff like that, uptime monitoring. So it's just making sure that the stuff is running. And then if something goes wrong, then you decide what level of care you want to give with something going wrong. So mine, it's like, if something goes wrong as a standard day-to-day, I'll fix it. If it's something because of a plugin has completely, shit the bed, and it's bad, and it's like, let's say a key plugin for your site, like one where your site is built around the plugin, then you're gonna have to pay for something. If it's something like a form plugin or whatever, then I'll fix that. If it's something that's general. But like Corey said, like it can, there's times when something goes wrong for everyone. Like Elementor Page Builder, they had issues, and every single site that was built with Elementor started having issues, and it's like, man, I'm just not going to update any of these for like a couple of weeks until this sorts out, which sucks because then they get a vulnerability update, and it's like, oh crap, all your sites can get hacked now. You have to update all of them anyway. But generally, it's really good. It's really hands off. I use Managed WP, so managedwp.com to do the updating and retain backups and everything like that. And so I just jump on there every week or two and just hit update all. It's automatic backups, automatic reporting, automatic everything. So it's basically peace of mind for them. You're maintaining the site, you're maintaining the infrastructure, so to help prevent hacking and things like that. And I do, like, if they do get malware or they get hacked, I'll fix it. It's part of the service. So then you have people who go a bit further beyond that, and they start adding things, which is where Corey's probably about to jump to. They start doing things like, okay, every single month, like instead of paying me $100 a month to maintain everything, you pay me $300 a month, and I'll give you 2 hours worth of work every month. Use it or lose it. So you can request small things, whatever. Some people go unlimited. There's actual white label services out there, like gowp.com. They're a big one, where you pay them. They're like $80 a month or something. I think US, and then they'll maintain, do all the maintenance, and they'll handle any requests that come in as long as they're small requests. So you could say unlimited. You just give a support email, you make the support email go to them, and then, you're kind of sweet. But I always struggle with it because I don't offer the changes as part of my plans, because I don't like working. And the hitting update once every 2 weeks is really not that much of a hassle for me to do, and I don't want to pay per client for that. If I was going the other way, I definitely would. Yeah.
It's really the difference too, like Trey. I mean, like with graphic design services, it's like one is like a retainer, right? Like if you're charging and you're going away and doing the work, it's like a set amount of, yes, you can get ahead of that if someone doesn't use up, like you're selling someone sort of 8 hours a month and they only sort of use 5, you get in front, right? But it's still kind of money for like the work that you do, whereas with a lot of the other care plan stuff, like that basic level maintenance and update stuff, it really has almost no relationship to the amount of work that you're doing. Some months there's kind of very 5 minutes worth of work.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so
got it. And we're talking like a nominal monthly fee. I mean, and we're not talking like a ton of money for them every month, right? I can't imagine that would be very expensive.
Yeah, it depends on the client and the risk that you're taking.
Sure.
On. It's that sort of stuff. But and e-commerce and stuff, there's more risk than really it's a risk mitigation insurance type policy is how I sort of see it. And look, standard sort of prices you see are anywhere from sort of like $50 to maybe $199 a month in that realm. And if you can sort of get people on for like $50 a month, and it's something that you're spending 5 minutes a month on, and then you end up getting 20 of them or 10, it starts to that's why I'm saying I wish I'd done it earlier, because it took me a while to build up to about 40, and now that's like it's getting close to a little wage, so it takes a lot of pressure.
Great explanation. Thanks.
Takes pressure off of the sort of stuff you have to say yes to, and gives you a bit more freedom around
it covers costs, so that's probably the biggest one. Pays for your hosting, pays for your software licenses, and You know, make sure
should do more than that.
Yeah. Then you're like covering groceries, and then that, you know, then it starts covering things, and then your project income is like just bonus.
And I guess another thing with that too, Trey, that's worth sort of thinking about is like, as you sort of, you know, if you do more and more sort of WordPress stuff or whatever, you know, setup you're using, if there's add-ons and plugins and stuff like that, well, then they become, you know, you pay for like a developer's license, and you might have 100 clients on there, and you're paying a set fee, and maybe you're paying $100 a year, for example. But if they were to go and do one license themselves, it's going to cost them $50 a year. So if you've got 10 things like that that you use, and then the client you're essentially saying, well, you could do all this stuff yourself. You've got to take all the risk on. You've got to do all the work yourself. Someone's got to be backing it up, doing all of these things, and you're going to have all of these licenses anyway. So you know, it starts to almost work out as a no-brainer for people to do some of these things.
I'm going to interject real quick and just say that, yeah, it was totally something that like you started from the beginning. So it was just kind of natural that I had a host. I go through Flywheel. So I had my reseller, I built it there. And my first client was like, well, now what? And I'm like, well, I can kind of just take care of this for you. So it kind of worked itself out. And now, you know, many moons later, I'm finding that 99% of the clients that are on web care packages are just saints. I have a process that works out great. You have a form, there's a support system. My packages are set as, I would say like an insurance, you know, like kind of like, if you don't hear from me, no news is good news. And then I also have where you can add on a retainer. And if you don't use it, you lose it. So there's different tiers based on how much time you add on. But the one thing I learned that I wish I knew when I just kind of dove into this and just stole like some contract I found online was that I actually put the time into my own and set like really good boundaries from the beginning, because I do have one client that I bitched about a bit in our chat a while ago that it was like, she is just an abuser of that. And you have to make sure that your boundaries are like solid before you really dive in, or else you're going to find like someone out there is going to take advantage of you and treat you, you know, more like a VA than like the expert that you are, you know?
Yeah, very good point. And that's 100%.
Yes. You can have all the support and you can even have like a third party take care of all your stuff. Like I use Managed WP too, and you can have all these things in place, and there will still be someone that will definitely be like in your inbox every day, you know?
Yeah.
So just heads up when you set out that proposal, Trey, that you put like every little detail about how you get to use, you know, the extras, if you're doing extras, you know.
Yeah.
I like Nick's idea. All I do is update. I don't like to work.
Nah, I don't. So I'm actually, it's one of those areas where I continually keep thinking about and doing new stuff with. So
Hello.
Beck?
Oh, sorry, hang on.
Hey, Beck. She's gone.
So right now I've got like the 3 plans, and they're kind of crap, and everyone just jumps on the base one, except like one client. They pay me, I think it's like $300 a month for the same thing. Just it's a way more complex site and a way more complex client. But now I'm thinking like, okay, let me just have one care plan, and then let me have extras that they can add on. So it's like, okay, you have your care plan, it's $100 a month or 120. I think I want to make it 125, $125 a month. And okay, you want content updates, extra $300 a month. You know, you want to add, I don't know, like SEO, an extra blah. And I may even make that something that I can allow people to actually sign up for online. I'm hesitating over that. I know a lot of people do, but I'm just thinking in terms of managing the admin behind payments and stuff. Someone signs up for something, then I've got to go into my accounting software, set up the recurring invoice, you know, hope they pay it, reconcile the payments. If they haven't paid, chase them up. And I tend to always have
straight credit card details.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's, you know, I've got a what do you call it, Go Cardless, which does direct debit, and Xero does auto pay as well. It gives them the option, but if they don't do it, if they just pay, I can't force it unless I actually tell them, hey, listen, I need you to do it this way. So that's why I'm thinking, rather than do it that way, I actually make it, okay, cool, you want to go ahead, here's where you actually get it started, and go put your details in, put all the details in, payment and everything, and just sets up subscription. They can go in and manage it if they need to change card payment details, whatever, and I can just sit back and then just find out if everyone who bounces each month. Yeah, so that's something I've been thinking about, is I want to make it simpler, but I want to make it so that the higher plans are appealing. So it's like, oh, cool. You know what? Yeah, you're not pushing me into anything. It's like, here's your maintenance. That's what it is. Great. Oh, hey, I can get you to do blog posts for me each month. Sweet. You know, extra like $1,000.
You made me think of something, Nick. One thing, if anyone that's like listening to this or watching it back, or Trey or anyone else that's thinking about the care plan stuff, the one mistake that I made that's worth bringing up as well is I used to present it as an optional thing, and now I present it, it's not mandatory. Someone can say they don't want it, and that's totally cool. But it's just presented as standard. Like it's not, it's, you know, like it's not, like it's as if it's mandatory, but it's not. Like
it's part of the solution.
It's part of the solution,
Yeah.
exactly. It's just a default in there.
Yeah.
So here's my costs for the actual project, and then it's directly under it. These are the ongoing costs.
Yeah.
And once again, if they
one
wanted
step
to
further is to make them opt out. Like if they don't want to do it, I actually I force them to like check the box that they've opted out of my care plan. That way it's like, no, when this shit hits the fan, it's on you. You know,
I don't even give them that option. It's in the proposal. It's in the proposal.
It's
not an optional thing.
Talk about it.
Yeah, that tell me, oh, hang on, I don't want to do this ongoing thing.
And then I'd have a conversation to be like, well, you know, you're going to have to pay for these licenses anyway, and this is what this actually means. But if someone really wanted to not do it, but like I said, the main mistake that I used to do was I actually presented as an optional, like, you know, this is the project. Oh, these are the optional extras. If you want, we could do SEO. If you want, we can do care plans. And when it's optional, everyone goes like, no. As soon as I made it,
because they don't get it, they don't understand. Yeah.
Right. And when you make something standard, that, and this was the crazy thing, right? The project before I made it standard and the project afterwards, it's like the client presumes that everyone else before them had done that, and that is standard. So like that's the whole benefit with presenting stuff as like normal. Like everyone signs my contract. It's no big deal. Like if you don't have a contract and you present it like, oh, I'm trying out a contract for you to sign, people will be like, but if you're just like, you know, now I've got contracts, but the presumption is everyone before signed a contract.
Yeah, they don't know. They don't ask what the person before them contract looked like.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that also, I like that because it sort of reinforces what you may or may not have already discussed with them, and that's that websites are living, breathing things. I mean, there's going to be this kind of constant, the field of dreams approach. If you build it, they will come. That doesn't work anymore, right?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Yeah, I'm having to have those conversations with people so they understand. Like this is a relationship now. This isn't just I'm doing one thing and then we're done.
Yeah. You've got two parts, right? It's because you're recommending a solution as part of anytime you're talking to someone and you're selling them a website, selling them something, you usually make a recommendation, at least if you're trying the whole the expert approach. So it's like, hey, they come to you, they talk about what they're trying to achieve. You're like, great, well, here's my recommendation. We build you a new website. It's going to be like this, 1, 2, 3. It's going to include these things, 1, 2, 3. And then once the site's done, then we need to do this. And then you recommend the ongoing maintenance, so you can explain why and things like that, and you handle objections in your sales meeting. And then at the end of it, you've agreed to it all. And so they know that they're paying 10 grand for a website. They're paying an extra, $100 a month for hosting and maintenance or whatever your care plan is. And then they get a proposal that just has that in it. Like, cool, that's exactly what we spoke about, and they sign off, and it becomes really easy. I've had a couple of people who didn't go ahead with care plans, and it was because in the process when we spoke about it, they were straight out, we maintain our own sites, we know what we're doing, and blah, blah, blah. And then I had a bunch that when we were doing non-WordPress that were like, out of my control. I couldn't really say, hey, yes, you still need maintenance, even though it turns out they actually did need maintenance. Even though you're building with like a different CMS, that CMS still gets updates and needs to be updated. So, so I just never updated it because I wasn't getting paid to do it. So,
but that framing tray of like relationships is really important. It's a great way to sort of present it because, like, the whole thing with the website is like, I don't want to build it and then fuck off and magically disappear. It's like, well,
right.
I'm still here, like,
unless I do.
Yes.
Unless you're an asshole. Unless you're an asshole, then yes, I want to fuck off immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's not the goal. That's not the intention when you start this stuff. It's meant to be a relationship. We're meant to be sort of. Yeah.
I'm curious. Trey, I'm similar to you that I'm only just getting started with care plans and things too. I'd love to know with you guys, do you include a free amount of time before they're on your care plan? Or is there, with a new website builder, for example, is there like 3 months free, 12 months free included in the price of the website setup? Or is it straight away, like as soon as project's finished, you're straight onto care plan?
That's a really good question. So for me, and one of the reasons why I did this is purely because it's basically like straight away, right? Like we have an intended date of launch, and after that, you kind of are in care plan mode. And one of the reasons why that's happened is because we've all had clients that take 12 months to get you their content, and you're sitting there and you're updating the website anyway. And you can't it's on your server. And that's the one thing, like if that's another important point. If someone is going to not have a care plan, like I can't host them, they can't be anywhere near my other clients' stuff, they can't be on my server, like you're going away. If you start saying stuff to people like that, they're like, whoa, shit, this is a big deal. You're like, I can't have any responsibility over this. I can't even have it near my stuff. You're that risky to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we'll have an intended launch sort of date. And there is some, look, I'm a little bit casual. There's some allowances with it. It's not like, if someone's like, it looks like we're a couple of weeks behind or something, I'm not going to start invoicing for them, especially if you can tell you're nearly at the end. But it's essentially, once we've got the fully functioning website prototype built and we're just waiting on content, then it starts from then.
My contract is like that as well. So as soon as you finish the development, before they can even put content in, I get my final payment, and then we start the monthly hosting and whatever. And I tell them that until that starts, I don't give them access to anything. So they have to pay their last one, and then once they're on hosting, they're on my care plan, and then when they're ready to go live, I just make it live like it's included with the monthly fee.
What about you, Angelita? Is that similar?
Sort of, yeah, except that whole thing that Nick just said about like you put in the content. Yeah, I don't do that. I put in the content. I'm the one that, too. I mean, I have like a whole roadmap system. It's like 7 steps. It walks them through the story brand process of collecting their content, just clarifying their message, that kind of stuff. And then what I do is I have like a launch day. There's like it's a hurrah day with them, and they're on Zoom with me, and we launch their site. And then I do this big post-launch process where I graduate them to the web care plan. So by the end of the day, they're like, congratulations, you've graduated like out of my,
How about you teach us how to do that?
It's a moment.
Sounds a lot better than what I do. Jesus.
And then they move into like my support email, and they get this, they get like a packet, and I send them a gift, and it's a thing. And then I give them 1 week. So I give them 7 days of questions and answers. So there's I don't update their site with like content. I don't change things. There's no design changing. There's nothing like that. It's just, hey, you have a question, I can answer it for you for this next 7 days since we've launched. And then after that, you're like, okay, you're on the clock for any allotted time that you have within the plan that you've signed up for. But yeah, and then I was going to say one more thing about the question and answer, and I forgot, but whatever. So pretty much it's just like this big post packet. Like they know it's coming because I talk about it for like the 2 weeks leading up to launch.
I can pretty much,
that's what I do.
I can pretty much sense a product there for you to sell, which is your offboarding. Yeah. That's something that I'm not great at. Like I get to the end of the project, I'm like, yeah, all right, guys, we're done.
You know what I learned? If you don't, they think I mean, I have these clients that like invite me to their weddings. I have like, they're like, they think we're friends, and I hate to say it because we're
idiots.
I know my husband laughs at it all the time. He's like, you're too nice. They think you're your friend. And the problem is because you get in that friend zone and they think like, oh, I can just ask Angelita, she'll know. And it's like, before you know it, they're like, so how do I, with my emails on my computer and I want them on my laptop, and you're like, whoa, I'm not that person, you know, I'm not your IT support, you know? So you do have to kind of do this big, I found that the more elaborate it is, the more that they get that like, no, we're done here. I'm on to my next client, and you're just now like into this web care, you know, you're one of them now. So,
so see, very different, like with like myself and maybe even Corey, we're just assholes. So they don't want to be our friends.
I wish. I can't, you know, I did have to have like an asshole moment this week with that one client that I kept dealing with. It's like, I'm just having a hard time with her, but like for the most part, people get it. They're like, all right, you know, I have a form that you have to fill out if you need to contact me for some sort of support question or content update. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. I record all these videos, like tutorial videos for them, and I put it on the WordPress dashboard. So most of the basic things that they need to know how to do, like we do on that day of launch, we'll do an hour of like just one-on-one training where I take them through like, just this is how your website works. And this is kind of like knowing your business. This is the stuff you're going to need to update, you know, on the regular. And of course, I'm here if you want to like pop that thing into the, you know, form, and I'll do it for you, but it's going to cost you. So here's how you do it. And then if they, you know, it's overwhelming for them if you just puke all this stuff on them in that 1 hour. So what I usually do is I use Loom, and I'll record, you know, like these 5-minute clips of here's how you update the text in this spot, and here's how you do a picture, and don't upload it like that, upload it like the, you know, optimize it before you put it up, you know, all that kind of stuff. And it'll just be all these little videos on their dashboard. So it's like, I can see in Loom, like, it's like, oh, so-and-so just watched this video, you know, and it's like, oh, they're working on their site, you know? So it does help that they have this little underlying, like, they don't feel like they need me, but then they still use me anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I so with the video recording, I kind of do the exact opposite, which is I used to offer training, like live training as the initial thing, and then say I'd go do the videos. And now it's the opposite. Like I say, I'll do the videos, and then if you have questions, like specific stuff, like you've got an hour allocated, and we'll do like a one-to-one. But because what I've found is that the videos, A, cover everything, and B, the stuff you teach them, they forget anyway. So they always go back to the videos because they don't touch something for 3 months.
Exactly. That's so true.
And it's always...
I just do the Loom. I do one video. It's 5 minutes. I run through. Here's your dashboard. Here's where you got to update posts. Here's how you create one new one. You can see here, 1, 2, 3. Don't forget this and this. Go to pages. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes. Goes through everything. Sometimes I will split it up. So one into how to go into pages, one how to go into posts. If they're complex sites, then I'll do a few more. Like I've got one, there's like about 20 videos that I've recorded, and then I just give them access to the videos. And then they usually just email me a question every now and then. I just reply this video and show the video, or an
I'm
answer
just like overdoing it then, because I have like, usually they're like 4 hours or so worth of content of videos recorded on their dashboard.
Jesus
for them.
Christ. Okay.
Because I'm just like, you know, I just feel like you should know how, like, that's kind of part of my spiel is like, you should know how to like use your site. Like you shouldn't feel like you're totally like helpless, you know, once this thing goes, because I always get these clients that come in and they're like, I had this horrible experience with a designer and a developer, you know, and now I have this site and I don't know how to use it, and it's just gone to shit in a handbag. And you're like, well, but because you're not a designer or a developer, that's why, you know.
You're
so
not
I feel like I need to kind of help
if you,
them,
yeah, definitely. Look, I make sure that I give them enough that they can do what they need to do. So they can update posts or add posts. They can go in and show them how to edit content on the site, specifically how to edit. And I usually go through like a home page and maybe another page. And I show them how custom fields work and things like custom post types and stuff work if I have any. It's you've got to give them enough that they can actually go and do the things. But you don't have to go and like, you know, kill yourself to do it either. You know, I always think about how much are they actually going to watch. Like I know for a fact, the one that I did the most videos for, they've watched less than half of them, you know, and instead they've asked me stuff. And now considering they're paying me $300 plus a month, they ask me occasional question. I don't mind going in and doing it because, hey, I'm getting paid, you know, more than any other care plan I have. So
I think that with some of that stuff, though, there's no hard and fast rule. You should sort of have an idea on who who your customer is. And to be
your
honest,
brand.
Most
your
of my
brand
customers
as well.
don't do very many updates themselves anyway. It's pretty rare. So
I set up a little course in MemberVault because it's all the same stuff. This is how you add text. This is how you make an image. This is how you change your background. I didn't see the point in recording different videos for each different client. So I just add them to the course and we're off.
Yeah. Awesome.
That's a great idea, Becca. I do have like maybe 5 of them are on every site because it's just like, you know, the same thing, like you said, for everyone. But then there are those ones that are like, well, it's in, you know, specific to them because they have events or they have, you know, it's e-commerce or whatever. And then you're like, well, here's how you specifically do it. But I think I'm going to do what you do, Corey, and just scrap the whole one-on-one, because it's just, I literally just go through all the things I just did on videos.
Yeah.
And I do it with them. And I could see they're just glazed over and they don't, they're like, oh, this is great. And then, you know, the minute that you hang up, they're going to be like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
You know?
You put it in the office, so it's still there, but I just reverse engineer it. So it's like, there's an hour allocated for this stuff when you need it.
I get them to do it when I do the lives with them. I get them to do it. It's frustrating as fuck. But okay, so you load it, we share the screen in Zoom, we share your screen in Zoom. Now I want you to go add a new post. And I'm like, I had toddlers 20 years ago. Like, I don't need to, you know, I don't want to have to step you through, but I do it because otherwise they complain. But yeah, I've taken away the one-on-one stuff as well and just do the course stuff.
Doesn't that take forever to like wait for them to like?
Yes. That's why I had to stop, because it was either face the glazed over look and have the same questions 29 million times, or get them to do it, because I homeschool kids and that's how I do it with my kids. So I figured adults are just the same. But yeah, I don't have the patience to wait for kids. I mean, adults. I can wait for kids, just not adults.
Same.
All right. I think we've kind of covered the care plan stuff. Does anyone have anything else? That was sort of meant to be, I thought we were just going to do 5 minutes on that, but we've sort of done it for half an hour on care plans.
One thing I wish I knew earlier is, all right, it's a couple of different topics. I'll run through a couple quick ones. Number one is I wish I knew the importance of having any sort of specialization. So I know a lot of different stuff reasonably well. So that's because, you know, I did computer science, then I went into accounting, then I went into sales, then I ran a business for someone else, then I ran my own business. I did coaching, consulting. Now I do websites. I've run SEO, I've run pay-per-click ads. Like, I've done heaps of stuff myself. So I have broad knowledge across everything. But when you don't specialize in any one thing, if you're not very good at any one thing, like, the knowledge is super helpful. I can talk to people, I can give amazing advice because I know so much about different businesses, how they work, different functions, how they need to work. I'm good at solving problems. But when you want to build yourself as something and you want to put your name out there, you generally need to have a stake in the ground, a thing that you're known for. And I really wish I had picked something earlier on to focus on. Now I'm doing that sort of, and more based around sales and sales training, you know, helping people sell services better. But I wish I'd done something like years ago, technical. Like, I wish I'd gone, you know what, let me focus on ads, because I'm generally good at writing like little short ad copy. I wish I'd been like, okay, let me focus on ads and let me learn how to do ads good and let me make that the core of my business. Or if I was focusing on design, like, go and become like, you know, get the skill set to design like Corey does. And you do like the amazing work and focus on it and talk about it all the time and become known for it. Because when you're known for something, you don't have to be the best, but you have to just operate as if you're trying to be the best, if that makes sense. Like, go and get the skills, go do the knowledge, go talk about it, go teach other people. Because there's a lot of people out there who talk as if they are the best at what they do. They're not. You know, they'll say they're a UX person, and they'll...
Don't get me started, bro. Don't get me started.
Well,
triggered.
Yeah. So, you know, being an UX expert isn't the same as saying that you're a UX expert and then critiquing people's UI design choices subjectively based around your personal choices, right? But people do that, and then because so many people have no freaking clue what a UX expert is. They're like, well, they're an expert because they say they are. So, you know,
I can talk about that.
Yeah.
What was the other thing you were going to say? You said you had two things.
So that was one. The other thing was the power of content creation and sticking to things over time. So I wish 2-3 years ago, when I first said I'm going to start doing content, I said video content. 2019, I said this is the year of video content for me. Now, if I had done that back then, I can tell you now, I would have probably a YouTube channel with a decent chunk of subscribers. I would probably, be well known for a bunch of different things for, across whatever industry. And yeah, agency would probably pick up a shitload of work, like steady lead flow. And yeah, I wish I'd done that before instead of now. And even now I'm like, oh, well, this is the year that I'm going to do it.
That's too close to the bone. This is the first one of Beyond the Brief. So let's come back to that once we're 5 or 10 down. might not keep this one up. Yeah, I think that's it.
I'm just going to get my daughter. 1 sec.
I think that's an easy one though. That's pretty obvious. And but I don't know. I like that topic of the jack of all trades, master of none idea. I kind of see myself as jack of one trade, still master of none, but that's all right. I don't know what Nick's gone, so that makes that hard. Hopefully he'll have his little daughter and that'll be cute.
So I'll speak to this because
yeah, awesome.
I mean, I actually have the counterpoint to that, but not everybody I don't think is able to do the jack of many things. I know that, like, well, let's take logos, for example. I can do great logos, but I know that there are 100,000 designers out there that specialize in that's all they do are logos and branding, and they're way better at it than I am. So by positioning myself as more of a creative consultant, now that said, understanding that, I worked for agencies for 20 something years before being this. So I'm leaning heavily on all of those years and relationships. But being a consultant then allows me to sort of cherry pick those amazing designers that I know are going to be the right fit for whatever that client needs. And I can't not spread myself thin. Like I can't, there's something in my fiber of my being that won't let me like just do logos or just do, graphic design or just do whatever. Like I want to do it all. And I hear everybody talk about the risk and the kind of how that can affect your income or, not niching. But for me, it's been pretty effective. So
I've got a bit of a thought on that too, Trey. I think because when you talk about niching, and I've sort of done some presentations on niching, and there's sort of like, people look at it as one of two things. They sort of look at it as the vertical and the horizontal sort of niches, right? Like that you can niche on like a type of skill, or you can niche on a type of industry, right? So you could be like, well, I'm a hand letterer, so that's what I do. And I work with anyone, but I'll do hand lettering. So you really, scale back your skill. And then there's the, I'll work with an industry. So like I can do everything, but I just work with, I work a lot with land developers. So I just work with land developers, for example. But then really there's kind of like a diagonal version of that, which is kind of offering, a broad range of both, but having almost like it's psychographics based sort of stuff where you're kind of going, well, it's a type of person that I work with. And to me, what you've almost described is almost that diagonal where you're like that's a niche in itself, like that you're or like that's a master of one still, like that. Yes, it's broad and you can help people with logos and branding and web and social or whatever it is, but that ability to be that person that you're talking about, like you're saying, that's taken you 27 years of industry experience working in agencies to be able to be someone that can actually manage and see that whole bigger picture. So it's kind of at the same time both like a master of one and a jack of all trades, because I think there is that sort of jack of all trades where it's like you don't actually have those skills, right? Like
That's true. To people who know, to people who get it, or who have worked for, big corporations and worked for the marketing department, I often describe it as a fractional creative director. Yeah. So they tend to get that. So yeah, I guess in that sense, it is kind of a niche.
Yeah, and it's a type of person with a type of understanding of what you do,
right?
And yeah, I mean, on the whole, I think one of the things that I would agree with the sort of spreading yourself too thin is when I started, and I was like, I just wanted to get any work that I could. So it's like I said that I did SEO, and I wasn't that great at it. So I said I did digital marketing, and I wasn't very great at it. And it's like, well, really, what I'm good at is branding, and I'm lucky that I'm good at web, and I'm good at branding. And to me, they're pretty big separate things, and a lot of people act like they can do both, and I don't think they do them particularly, well, or they've got one that they're sort of leaning towards better than the other. But for me, what I've definitely found is the more of those other things that I pulled out, the more sort of focus that I got, and the more I was able to charge for some of the stuff that I did. But yeah, I think, like I was saying with you specifically, I think that's a very sort of specific skill, and a lot of people couldn't position themselves like you have. So yeah, I don't know. What do you did you catch any of that, Nick?
Sorry, I caught the end where it was basically Trey's been doing his thing for like 27 years, like a long time.
25,
25 years plus, and is at the position now where he's kind of more of a creative consultant than anything else. And that's because it's tied in a lot of his different expertise areas. And now, but you still, like, you do enjoy doing the work as well. So, it's like, yeah, I do want to design a logo sometimes. I do want to do a brand sometimes. I do want to design a website sometimes. And I think, I've got such mixed feelings about niching. And I think niching is just a marketing thing. That's it. It's not a business thing. It's a marketing thing. You identify a market that you can basically advertise to, or market to, or talk to. That will be, so you can do a very tailored message for them, and you can have multiple niches, and you can do multiple things. And you don't have to niche to a specific market. You can niche by the service you offer. You can niche by, by locality sometimes. Like, there's so many different ways you can select a niche and talk to a niche. So I think with what you're doing, basically, is you're taking all this expertise that no one has, right? Like, not many people have that level of experience and knowledge to be able to, do all the things and coordinate all the things and consult on all the things, even though a lot of people call themselves consultants. And so you're taking that, and that's basically the service, which is essentially kind of the niche, because it does stand out a bit. The hardest thing with consulting I always found was actually selling consulting, because people aren't looking for it. Usually, they're looking for a website, not a website consultant. They're looking for, lead generation, not a business coach, to guide them through a process. So, sometimes they are, but it's significantly lower than the people looking for the service itself. When I switched from business coaching as a primary focus to web design as a primary focus, a lot of the people, I was in a lot of networking groups, and like, literally, I had all these people that I've been networking with for like a year and a half to 2 years that were like, oh my God, now I can refer you easily. Like, I know how to refer you now. You build websites, sweet. I was like, and I've done okay-ish, not great with the coaching in the networking groups, mostly because, people don't know what it is, don't want it. Even though you educate them, they're like, I don't get it. They don't want to go into anything ongoing. I picked up this first week I went somewhere as a web person. I think I picked up like 4 referrals, which was like better than like the previous 6 months or something. And yeah, I was doing like 80 plus grand a year in revenue from like the networking groups. That was actually from one networking group. So yeah, which is pretty solid. Sometimes I think I should go back, but whatever. Not worth the time exchange. But yeah, it's yeah, like niching is, it can be useful, but you don't have to. Like, and there's cases of people succeeding in both sides. A lot of you've got the largest businesses in the world, like, they don't niche. Like, Blind LA, like, Chris Doe's thing, the future and all that, like, they're a branding agency. That's it. Like, their niche is people who want good branding. Like,
Right.
you know, people who want to work with the best, you know, people who want the crazy results. And for a long time, and I'm still not convinced it isn't, but my niche has been people who are looking to achieve better results from their marketing, who are already marketing, who are investing in ads or investing in SEO, and their conversion rate on their site isn't high enough, or it's not, you know, it's not really hitting with their audience. Because I'll go in and I'll fix that, and they get significantly better results. So
I'd still say that a lot of these big people, you know, big names, you know, whether it's sort of like VaynerMedia from Gary Vee and all that sort of stuff, they still have this niche. They still have a really strong leaning. And so, yeah, like Blind with Chris Do, it's like, yeah, maybe they do social stuff, sure, but they're coming from it from that brand perspective. And same with Gary Vee, maybe they do brand related stuff and maybe they do web related stuff, but they'd be coming at it from this social and communication tool perspective. Like that's kind of, you know, so I think we sort of get fixated on niching and like this one thing as if it's, you know, either like a specific industry or a specific, but I think that can often just be like a gateway into these other things. And to be honest, that's how I feel about what I do. So when I talk to people about websites, like to me, that is a branding tool. Like everything that we do to me is an extension of your brand. And if that's not how, if that's not how you believe or how you want to position yourself, totally fine. Like I think you could say, no, it's a tech tool, it's a communication tool.
I say marketing tool. So
yeah,
same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that's because I'm brand focused.
Yeah.
And if someone is like, no, I don't see my website as a brand tool, and it's like, well, then I'm not working with those sorts of people, which is good because I want people that are tied into this brand connection as a whole. And then normally I've got more to offer them and not more to sort of sell them on and help them with ultimately. So yeah, even though it's like, well, one might be a website only, to me, it's still a brand exercise. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, when I was saying about the whole picking something to focus on, it wasn't so much about solely doing that or anything like that. It was more being known for something and being very, very good at something. So you know how many times, like, you know, I sit there and I look at someone else's like design or something someone has developed, or I look at a piece of content someone's written and I'm like, oh man, I wish I could do that. And it's like, well, I could have if I hadn't like not tried to focus to that, if it makes sense. Like, you know, I get bored really easily. So I'll learn something to a certain point, and you know, like the 80-20 rule, like, you know, 20% gives 80% of the efforts. I'm like that guy. So I'll get to the 20% that actually does the bulk of it. Sometimes I'll learn a couple of small tricks that take you to that final, like the difference makers sometimes. And that usually is enough to really look like you know what you're talking about, and often deliver a really good result anyway. But, you know, like conversion rate optimization, I have never gone and done formal CRO training. I haven't gone and signed up for the CRO Academy or anything like that. And it's like, well, if I did, I could probably start positioning myself as a CRO expert, conversion rate optimization expert. And when you're an expert at something, you get to charge more. You get to, you know, people seek you out more often. But when you're just a normal guy who builds websites, it's like, well, no, I'm not. There's nothing about me that stands out to people, you know, unless they talk to me and whatever. But
do you feel like you're missing out anything from that? Because I guess in a strange way, like, you know, like kind of all I've ever done is design, and it's branched out into other things, but I've been sort of doing it for over 20 years. And it's and I still look at designers and just go like, yeah, I'm shit, I give up. And you know, so
yeah, you say that to me and I'm like, bro, don't say that to me. Like when I look at yours and go, wow, I wish I was that good. And look, and to be fair, like I'm not bad or anything like that. I don't think I'm a bad designer. Like I look at other people's work sometimes and go, what the hell is this? Like I'm heaps better than this. And so there is a huge sliding scale, and then you have people who are right at the top, you have people in the middle, people at the bottom, and you're somewhere on that scale. You know, and we usually judge ourselves. I find the better you go, the harsher you judge yourself on that scale, and the worse you are, the higher you judge yourself on the scale. It seems like
Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yeah. So yeah. So do I feel like I've missed out on anything? Look, I might have, but ultimately, all of my experiences have got me to where I am today, right? So I I probably wouldn't have this insight if I didn't go down the path I did.
And there's probably the thing, and that's almost like where I was trying to get to the point with Trey, that he was sort of saying, oh, look, I don't really have this niche. And then he described something that is very specific, and that a lot of the other people like that I would struggle to do, and that other people wouldn't be able to do as well. So, I think that's the difference. Like, there's stuff that I don't have a sales background. I haven't done coaching formally and anything like that. So that those are things that you can talk to on a bigger picture, and it might allow you to, find that, psychographic right type of person looking for the right type of things.
Well, yeah, right now it's like the sales stuff. That's been a bit of a focus, and talking to agency owners pretty much, because it seems like I've got such broad experiences. I give general advice that's, as far as I'm concerned, it's pretty basic, but then people are like, wow, that's amazing advice. Like, holy crap. So, okay, maybe I'm good at giving advice to agency owners. Go figure. So it's kind of like one part, like on the personal brand, that's where I'm kind of putting energy into. And then I've just got to figure out more in the agency as well.
I won't make Nick do a shameless plug, but he does actually have a course out that is about this that very topic. So I'll post this stuff in the group and make sure.
You know what I'll do, man? I'll do you a discount coupon for your group, so you can.
That's no good. I've already bought the thing, you bastard. But
all right,
it's no good for me.
That's good for me, because I've been looking at your course, Nick. So this is perfect.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, cool. I'll do a coupon for the it's not called drama, Beyond the Brief.
Beyond the Brief, yeah.
For Beyond the Brief, yeah. Or Go Beyond. Yeah, I'll do like actually do it now. Why not?
All right. Does anyone else have a thing that they wish that they'd learned earlier? I've got another one, unless someone else. I heard someone go.
I was just going to say, I guess I'm still near. This is really helpful, because I'm kind of near the start of running my own business. I've been doing this whole thing full time for a year, even though I've been doing the work for 10 years.
Yeah.
Running my own business is so much different. But something I have to keep reminding myself, especially when I hear you guys talk, like I look at your work, I look at the courses, I look at everything. I'm like, oh my goodness, like that's where I aspire to get to. And then to hear you guys saying, oh, I look at other ones. And it's funny, but I remember reading or seeing a documentary that the better you get, the worse your imposter syndrome gets, because the more you know that you don't know.
Yeah.
So when you're starting, you think you know everything because you don't know what you don't know. The better you get, the more you realize that there's so much more that you want to learn and you want to know. So I have to kind of keep reminding myself that the worse the imposter syndrome, most people, it just means that you actually know what you're doing and you just know how much more there is to learn.
And I think that also, generally when people have imposter syndrome, to me, it's an indication that they give a shit. Like they give a shit about the things that they're doing and the things that they're trying to help people with. And yeah, like it's real, like it actually is real. And I mean, we already mentioned the Dunning-Kruger effect with Trey a second ago, but like that's essentially what it is. Like the stupider someone is, the less qualified they are at understanding that they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And you do something for 10, you've been doing it for 10 years, and you do something for a year and you're like, wow, look how much I've learned. And then you do it for 10 years and you're like, wow, I'm still learning. So I'm 10 years in, I could do this for another 10 years and I'm still going to have stuff to learn. So, that's how I feel after 20 years, that I've
every other week I'm ready to quit this shit and go do a produce stand.
Yeah, because
there's another part to it as well, right? So what happens is, as you start learning more, you start finding people who are technically on your level, and you're like, but they're just like me. Hang on, these are people who are better than me, but they're just like me, and you start feeling really weird, and it's like it's what the hell is this? So when you start like talking on stage, and talking at events, and you realize the other people doing it aren't actually any better than you, but you feel like they should be because you're not meant to be there. Like you're just some random person who happened to get onto this thing. And if it just is this massive like cognitive dissonance, saying like your brain's just going, this is weird, something's wrong. Like, and so you feel really weird, and the imposter syndrome hits really hard. But ultimately, all those people are just like you. They just happen to be taking action. And so when you take action, the imposter syndrome hits so hard.
It's like when you become an adult or a parent and you realize that adults had no idea what they were doing and your parents didn't know what they were doing.
That's why it's great when they try to give advice and you're like, dude, you had no idea, man. What are you talking about?
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's something, to try and keep in mind that everyone sort of feels that way, and it's kind of totally natural, and you know, you kind of just got to do what you got to do to write it out, because I mean, those moments disappear, and I don't think I've never met anyone who doesn't feel that way, and you know, and I think something else too is like, maybe the best thing to do is to stop looking at how other people are doing, and just sort of compare it to where you were last year, and how you were going and where things were tracking and what you know. And if people did more of that, then they'd be like, look how good I am compared to Corey 2020, you know, versus
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you also, as you get better, you start looking towards the next level. So
and you're never good enough.
Stop and look back at where you've come.
I found it really easy when I worked in agencies, because I literally, because of that, like I compete with the people that are right next to me, and you'd be like, I'm going to be better than them. But it was easy. I could see what they were doing, and but then you get in this sort of stage and you start dealing with people globally in these groups, and you see stuff all the time, and you're like, oh, for fuck's sake. Like, it's real.
Then people criticize your work as well after you share it.
Oh, that's another gripe. I think I talked about this with Nick the other day. I'm someone that shares a lot of stuff, and like, let's say I'm talking about pricing and someone will ask specifically about it, so I'll share a link to my pricing page, and then someone's like, they've dug 7 pages deep in my website and found a small thing that's wrong with it. And it's like, if like I've got pretty thick skin and I'm a bit of a prick, but sometimes I see that and I'm like, that's the sort of thing that stops other people from posting, like, especially when they do it publicly. Like there was a really lovely situation in the group a couple of weeks ago, and someone posted like some of their work, and then someone posted on you, I've sent you a DM, and I'm like, oh, I want to know what this is about, because that's kind of against group rules. And she messaged me straight away and went, I found something wrong on the person's website, I just didn't want to call it out. And I'm like, I love you, you're the best, because that's kind of how you should do it. And then so anyway, but that's probably where that came from.
So there's a couple of things there. Like, so one thing I've got to raise, like, so I had actually, like this morning, I had an email from a guy who opted into my sequence, which is like on my agency site, which is literally a purchased sequence from funnel packs, right? And just plopped it on the site. Don't care. It's just something to, someone jumps on, they want to opt in. Like, I don't, my agency site at the moment is very unloved and isn't a big focus of mine. So I just put it on there. So we've got something, lead capture. And this guy obviously opted in, and he replied to an email, one of the sequences, and said, hey guys, he said, hey, I've received this same email newsletter, like from 3 different people in the past, however long. And let me guess, like Nurture Copy, which is another service that provides content for newsletters. He said, you come up with your own work. This is embarrassing, like you're losing respect or something. And I was like, well, number one, that's an auto sequence, which means he's opted in. So if he's getting multiple, it means he's opted in multiple places. Now, I couldn't find this guy online, which sucks, because I really want, like, my favorite thing is to find them online, to check out their own work, to see what quality they're at, because...
And this person's obviously not a client, a potential customer.
No. And so, here's a big thing, right? I always look and I see, if they're better than me, I'll be very respectful. And if they're worse than me, I will not be respectful. I have never had someone criticize me that I've had to be respectful to. So you will not get people better than you criticizing, because they don't care, right? Like people who are better, people who are good and people who are better, they don't spend their time criticizing. They're too focused on their own stuff. So anyway,
someone's asking for feedback, like I'll give it to them. But
yeah, that's very different. But so this guy replied to him, and I said, hey man, so look, firstly, this is an opt-in, it's a funnel sequence, so it's funnel packs, not Nurture Copy. But hey, considering the fact that you know that, you're more than likely an agency owner, and the fact that you've received 3 means that you're opting into multiple funnels from other agencies. And I can tell you now, no good person will do that. You're not a prospective client, so this isn't for you anyway. A prospective client wouldn't be opting into multiple agencies things. But hey, maybe you should focus on your own failing agency instead of criticizing others. And then I said, like, his last line was like, do your own work, or saying, come up with your own, like, do your own work. You're embarrassing yourself. And what I just literally his last line back at him. And I was going to end with like, PS, go fuck yourself. But I'm like, oh, I'll be a little bit classy. But yeah. And then, yeah, I don't know if he's dead or whatever, but he hasn't replied. So, which is good.
You burn him to death with your reply,
yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Crispy. And lots of memes after.
I've got a couple of things that I wanted to talk about, but I don't know if I'll pick one. I don't know if we want to go like a deeper one or a mid-weight one. What do you think?
Can I share one real quick? It answers
sure.
itself. It answers itself. So one of the things that
by the way, hello, Sonia.
Oh, hi, thanks.
Good to see you.
One of the things that I think about, that I kind of realized once I started my own business, which is now almost 4 years, and that I sometimes get the chance to tell. I often do a visiting designer class with the university here, and sometimes I get to tell them that the piece of advice that I wish I had gotten, and the thing that I wish I had known, was to pay more attention to the business side of an agency or an in-house creative when you were working for someone else. I spent all these years working for someone else, and I was super focused on the creative, building a creative team and getting ROI and all this stuff, but I didn't pay attention to account service, but more importantly, just operations, like, billing and negotiating and contracts and all of that kind of stuff. And so anytime I get the chance to talk to someone younger, particularly if they're working at a bigger agency, I try to tell them, once you get your craft to a point where you're pretty comfortable, I mean, you never want to be complacent, but to where you're comfortable sort of doing your job all the time, and you're a little bit hungry, like, start paying attention and ask to be in those kinds of meetings if you can, where you're deciding budgets, where you're deciding timelines, traffic and all this other production stuff. Like, start to really understand that. Even if you have no aspirations of ever working for yourself. I didn't have aspirations of working for myself. I thought I'd always be working for an agency, and then here I am. So I just wish I had kind of known a little bit more about that.
I think that's a great point. I fell into that trap, basically, what you're saying you want people to avoid. And I essentially got handed a gift, which was that someone went, can you be on the operations team? Like, I was essentially the lead creative, and it was like I was doing it, had enough responsibility, and they were like, can you get involved in this stuff? And that's when I worked out like how they were handling all of these, core business things. And those things helped me immensely. And there's still things that I can implement and have got to implement. And, if and when I get to those sort of stages in the agency, there are things that I can do, and even at a small scale, like there's stuff that I can still implement. But yeah, I wasn't aware of that, how important that was. It's literally that someone, the boss went, we need someone else in operations. Can you come along and do this sort of stuff and manage this stuff? I was like, yeah, okay. Didn't even know what it meant. Didn't even know that there was this secret world. Like, and also there's another sort of small variation on that too for other people that are creatives that are at a different stage, that maybe you're sort of working for an agency as a creative, or you're freelancing, or whatever it is, but it's to try and get in those conversations where the design gets talked about and the other business gets talked about. So you're there when the briefs are taken, and you're there when work's being presented, and that's like a mini version of what you're talking about. If you can get sucked into that straight away, again, you learn enough core skills. I think people should almost be doing that as soon as they can, even when they're crappy at design.
Sure.
And I say to people that, someone that sort of had to manage and, teams and hire and fire sort of stuff, that there is more value in a designer that can sell their vision than someone that's an average designer that can sell the client on what they've done and why they've done it, versus someone who is an amazing designer and can't, because agencies can't afford to have people that can't get their stuff approved. So yeah, I think that's an important skill. But yeah, the operations side of things, next level, massive. Yeah.
That's all I got.
Yeah. Well, so one of the things that I was going to sort of talk about, and there's two things, is one, I wish that I'd learned that all leads weren't hot leads and they weren't good leads. I wish I'd learned that earlier because of the amount of time that I've wasted. So that's kind of a mid-level thing. And then the last thing that I was going to sort of talk about is I wish that I'd learned that talking about money in business isn't the same as talking about money in the real world. You know, that like it's day-to-day stuff. It's important, that it's not embarrassing. You know, people don't tell their mates how much they earn, and they don't talk about this sort of stuff where it's still sort of, it shouldn't be, but it's still sort of hidden, and there's almost like this bragging stuff to it. But when you're dealing with a business owner, you need to be able to talk about money confidently. You need to be able to ask them about money confidently, and just sort of be okay with it. And it took me a long time to almost not feel embarrassed about present. And the thing with being embarrassed about it is that you are on the side of caution and you rip yourself off. So if you can be confident about it and know things about, like, know what your value is for starters and things like that, and just but also on the flip side, when you're comfortable about talking about money, you can ask a business how they're tracking and what they're doing and how things are going and what their revenue goals are, and people sense that lack of confidence, and you can't do that like half-heartedly and awkwardly. So for me, that was a skill that I wish I'd learned earlier. Probably one of the things that helped me with that is sort of trying to reframe my mind around what actually money is and what it means to me. And I think people see money as, I'm getting deep here, but people see money as this, like, good and evil, like this really bad sort of thing, or this really all-encompassing powerful thing. But if you struggle with that sort of money conversation, and you see that money is essentially the same way as, I don't remember if you remember when you're kids, or if you did the sort of stuff like, it might be a Mother's Day and you do like a birthday card or your Mother's Day card for, and you're like, I owe you 1 cup of coffee, right? Or you borrow, someone does you a favor or whatever, and I owe you, 50 cents or whatever it is. That's all money is. It's like social, it's like an IOU that the whole world accepts as fair trade. My mum couldn't go give that token for a free coffee to someone else. But in the real world, that's all money is. So it's kind of like a measure of the help that you do for people, and the good that you're doing. So it's not like it's this thing that you're taking from people or anything like that. And yeah, I don't know if I'm waffling on a little bit, but it's certainly something that
there is a sense of, like, what I notice sometimes when you talk about money in how charging for websites and stuff like that, you'll find these people who go and they kind of treat it like a badge of honor that they don't charge a lot. They'll criticize you if you do, in their perspective. Now, I don't think I charge a lot personally, but for some people, yeah, I do. But I charge it based on what I see the value of what I'm doing is. So I'm not doing a website. I'm doing a website that is going to convert. And what's the value in having that in a business. And I don't charge the value of what it is. I just charge more than maybe the guy next to me does. The value might be 50,000, but I'm not going to charge 50,000 for a brochure site. So, but then you get people who are like, oh no, I'll charge this much. And people who do the way you do it are ripping people off. And it's like a badge of honor for them that they're doing the right thing, and they don't understand the concept of value. And I saw a tweet, I think it was from either Blair Enns or David Baker, and they were saying something along the lines of, if you don't understand value, like if you're not willing to pay for value, you will never be able to sell value. And it's just one of those things that I do see people at all ends of the spectrum. You get the people who are money focused, and they're all about trying to maximize their dollars, which I'm completely against. You get the people who, like, they wish they could, but for whatever reason, they feel like if they do make money, that they're doing something wrong. Like they've taken what you were saying about some people looking at money as being bad, and they're like, no, I can't make money, and they're self-sabotaging their potential success because they're not willing to charge money. Thankfully, like those people usually also, I mean, it sounds really bad, but generally they're usually not that good anyway. You know, they'll spend a day on building.
That's not always the case, and it kind of
not always, but yeah,
and it is heartbreaking for people to see that, and it's heartbreaking when you are that person. You're like, man, my work is really good. How come I'm stuck at $1,500 and not knowing that it's kind of in you?
That's I'll tell you now, man, that's a big focus for me, is those people who are, because I do know a lot of people who are really, really good and they don't charge a lot. And like half the time, like I'm spending online is me trying to pump them up to increase their rates and give them whatever ammo I can give, because I happen to know how to do that sort of stuff. Give them ammo to help them get more money and like get, you know, earn a living like effectively.
So there's this concept, and I think it's huge. And I remember learning it. I'm pretty sure it was like a 5-second thing that that was said in a Jonathan Stark podcast, and I just remember it like smacking me in the face like something crazy. But it's this concept of pricing for your own wallet, and it's that we kind of all have our own experience and our own understandings around money, and what our own value is. And I've had this conversation with other people, and it's like, it's really uncomfortable when you start to price yourself outside of what you would value your own work. Like, I wouldn't pay someone $15,000 for a fucking logo. Get fucked. I wouldn't do it. I just wouldn't do it. But so if I sort of held myself back to what my own expectation is, like, it really is kind of damaging. And that sort of thing with pricing for your own wallet or your own expectations, you kind of see that when people drop words like just or only or simple, and I've got a great example of that where I had someone do that exact thing to me. And this was earlier on, and this was, you know, probably back when I was charging like $5,000, and they were throwing around those sorts of words. And I'm like, oh, so I'm at $5,000, and they're going like, oh, I only want this, you know, just a simple thing. And then so I'm sort of shrinking and thinking what they probably going to spend is like $2,000. Oh God, you know, how am I going to get past this? And I very rarely would have asked budget type questions. And when I got to that point, I asked them about budget, and they were looking at spending $10,000 to $15,000. And I was like, woohoo! But that's because my expectation, when someone's saying like not very much money or just this, or it only needs to do this, I'm looking at how much that means to me, and then taking all of those like axe hits as if it's based on my perception and scaling myself back. So that was kind of, you know, pretty big. That's going back a while ago, but I still remember that.
But then you also see like people who do the work who say that about the work they're doing. So, you know, you'll talk to them about it and they'll say, yeah, look, you know, the project I have now, it's like 2,000, but it's only an 8-page brochure site. It's only this, it's very simple. It's only going to take me however long. And it's like, yeah, but you're just justifying keeping your rates lower than you, like, you know, that they should be higher, but you're justifying keeping them lower because, you know, usually fear or whatever. It's just really, it is a really interesting topic. We start like looking into what drives people and how they think about stuff and their own personal experiences and how it shapes how they work into the world.
I think honestly, mindset is this, it's a killer. I mean, I grew up really poor, like properly poor. We didn't have food. Some nights we didn't eat. That's like, you know, properly poor. People say that they're poor, but they, you know, they can pay all their bills. It's all good. They just don't have discretionary money. We were properly poor. So when I started working for myself, having grown up watching my parents struggle, I'm like, who am I to be able to earn $5,000 a website and not struggle and, you know, be able to pay my bills without having to look in my bank account to make sure I can feed my kids. So you have to, as a business owner, you have to get over that. And it's really hard.
As a human, like, you need to get over that. It's serious. Like, this is actually a big thing. When I was doing the coaching, you know, I mentioned earlier, I did like a coaching business for a while. One of the things that when I was doing the training and everything was talking about mindset and talking about people's limiting beliefs. And everyone has in them something that can cause them to self-sabotage. And it's usually fear. If you've been struggling all your life, when things start to go well, you're looking ahead and going, I don't know how to handle success. I don't know how to be like that. And then, you do get the limiting beliefs of, do I even deserve that? Like, you know, who am I to, make X amount of dollars or whatever. And
on
that can
the one
sometimes,
hand, you don't like being poor, but because you've never not been poor, this is your safe area. How do you get outside that safety zone?
Yeah. And it's a big one. And it's, I read this book once, and I read most of it anyway. It's called like third circle theory or something like that. And it's saying, when you're young, when you're really young, you, your experience and your perspective is shaped by the first circle of life, like, your parents and what they say to you and the things they say. Like, that's what you believe. Like, I've got friends who, growing up, their parents were religious, and so they were religious. I've got friends who, parents were racist and whatever, and they were racist. And then you hit a point where you get to grow beyond that, and you go to the second circle where you start to shape your experiences based on the stuff around you. I can't remember what the third circle was. I wish I'd remembered, but it was just really eye-opening, the book, like how this stuff works. And the second circle, you start to come up with your own stuff. And it's based off, your upbringing as well. And so it can sometimes be weird, like your views. And then, I think the next level was like actually forming independent views that are based off whatever. And a lot of people never get to that point. I've got friends still now who, despite the fact that they don't really believe in religion and whatever, they will still go to church and do the motions and talk about it and act like it. Because if you challenge them on it and say, so why do you do that if you don't actually believe? They're like, oh, well, and they don't have an answer. It's because that's the view, right? That's their thing. And I'm not saying, by the way, I'm not saying I don't believe in religion or anything like that. It's just more the independent.
I'm saying I don't, but that's okay.
Yeah, well, I don't, but I'm not saying I don't. That's not it's not like I'm trying to get people out of religion or whatever. It's just like it's any belief. When someone has a belief but they don't really believe in it, it's like I like to challenge that. So I'm a bit of an asshole and people don't like me sometimes, but whatever. It's and so I just ask questions. What, like, how people think and why they think, and then ask alternative. Like, what would be the alternative? And then you can see where people get uncomfortable. It's usually areas where it's like they're forced to think about something for the first time, or it's something that if they face, they may have to change things. And that happens a lot in business. It happens a lot in coaching. It happens in life. And unfortunately, a lot of people just put their head down and go with what they know. And that's why they end up staying stagnant and not improving their position in life.
I mean, I haven't been through anything like what Beck was describing in my life, but it kind of reminds me a little bit of what we were sort of saying around the imposter syndrome, that hopefully people, if they're just aware that that's how this works, and that we do have these points that we've got to try and cross, like our own, whether or not it's your own personal sort of relationship with money. But like I said, for me, it was when I was getting past points of like, I wouldn't pay this much money for the service that I'm charging. Everyone will get to a point where they have those sorts of big things, and I think some people aren't able to push themselves past that, and they do end up sort of sticking in that zone, and that's okay if that's what they want, if they're sort of comfortable around that. But if you want to sort of push past something, you have to actually be bigger and braver. And if someone like Beck has grown up in a certain way, and then they're like, well, that's a massive thing to sort of push yourself past, like that you want your whole life. And I can't imagine some of the questions that would be going on, like, why do I deserve to do this or get this sort of lifestyle? But I think for most of us, the important thing is that we'll come to these sorts of crossroads, and know that other people come to them, and then that you have to do what you got to do if you want to get past it. So I don't know, I don't have like a solid answer, but for me, that was really, really big sort of roadblock in some of the stuff that I've had. And probably, when I look back on stuff, it sort of stopped me from charging what I needed or what I wanted earlier. And there's that classic left money on the table sort of scenario, which I'm not too concerned about. It's more the other sort of stuff, the knock-on effects of, that it just took me so long to get comfortable with this business relationship and money, and my own sort of personal connection to it.
It's funny. I was going to say, one of the things that you mentioned, it's funny that you started with the medium thing, that it was, remind me again, it was like, not every lead is a hot lead.
A good lead. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, and then you said that people, I'm just going to regurgitate everything you just told us. You said that the not everybody is comfortable talking about money. And it's funny that the two kind of go hand in hand when you get on that first discovery call. If it took me a few years to figure this out, that if they're not willing to talk about money, the money that they make in their business before they've even signed a contract with me, then they're not a lead. They're not there yet. They're not ready yet. And I mean, that really took me until probably last year to really decide, like, you know what, maybe I don't need to work with you because you're not ready for me yet. And that's a whole mindset thing. And then one of the things that I struggled with, you guys went really deep on pricing, and maybe I'm a few years in because it's like way past everybody's bedtime here. But one of the things that I struggle with pricing wasn't so much about, like, the philosophical, how does it land in my life? Although it's true, I know I don't charge enough. I know that I don't charge enough for everything that I deliver. And I know that I sit on that, exactly as you said, Corey, that who the fuck would pay this much for what I'm giving them? Like, they could just do this themselves if they really wanted to. And so I'm still in between that, where I'm like, I know these people can't do this themselves, but I also know that it's worth more than this, but it just feels so icky, like, that I'm charging so much for something like this. And then on top of it, like, if you're, party of one and you run your business and you're solo and you don't have all this, like, an agency to fall back on that you used to work at, you don't really have like this experience level of, well, not experience in design, I've got that, but the experience of, well, what do people charge? And nobody puts pricing on websites. So you can't just go through and be like, I'm just going to search all my comps and know. Well, yeah, you do, but we're not even in the same country. So that doesn't count. I'm on a flipping island. Okay. So, but I don't even work with people in this area because they can't afford me, but, but my point is, it's like, how do you know at what point that you hit like that, the sweet spot of like what's appropriate for the value and what's appropriate for your lifestyle and what's, reasonable to charge. And I did this thing where I was like, okay, I charged X. When I first started out, I was that person that was like, I wasn't the person that was like, websites shouldn't cost that much, because they should. I know what goes into them, but I was like not justifying why somebody else should spend that much. So after my first client, I was like, all right, well, I was going to raise my prices $500. So then my second client, I raised it 500, and they didn't even blink. And I was like, okay, clearly I wasn't charging enough. And then I did it again, and then I did it again, and then I did it again. And I kept doing that. And it's like, well, you're in all these Facebook groups, you're in all these masterminds, you pay to be in these, certain things I pay to be in, but nobody's allowed to actually say the physical dollar amount in which they charge. It's like, you can't say it on Facebook, you'll get in trouble. You can't say it in these groups, you get in trouble. It's like, well, nobody puts the prices on their website except Corey. So how are we supposed to know what the charge? So I figured until somebody says no, I guess I'm not charging enough. Like, I just don't know when you get to that. So what's my design? What is my work worth? And then what is it? What is everybody else charging? Like, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm not a beginner, but I'm not like 25 years in, because I'm not old enough to be 25 years in. Remember? I know
Sonia's got some good insight. Go on. What were you going to say, Sonia?
Yeah, I hope you don't mind if I offer a different perspective. And by the way, my lips aren't going to move because my laptop was stolen and I haven't acquired another camera. So just pretend my lips are moving.
I can do that.
But I come from a completely different background on this, and maybe there's some insight I can add here. Yep. I come from Silicon Valley, and, I've had money thrown at me like there's no tomorrow. I mean, one of my first jobs in Silicon Valley, I was there a week, and they said, we want you to go to a conference. And I said, okay. And they had a limo pick me up. They insisted I fly first class because it was over 2 hours, company rule. And, they put me up at the finest hotels, and they spent just a crap load of money. And coming from Silicon Valley, they pay a lot of money, but they make a lot of money. And then, of course, a lot of my work has been in pricing analytics. And the one thing I want to toss out is you all are talking about one side of the equation, and that is, your feeling of self-worth and deserving and getting past that block. And that's important. But I think if you work it from both sides towards the middle, like if you actually do pricing analytics, you analyze the value to the client, and you run through the client's budget and how you're going to change that budget, how you're going to do, like I normally do a 5-year total cost analysis, right? For a client when I'm working up a website. And sometimes we even exceed it. I mean, there's one famous story I've got where a client was making 30 grand with a part-time website business, and she wanted to increase her value by 10% per year. That was the goal she gave me. Now, I thought we could do a little better than that. It turns out that in 3 years, she was doing $250,000 and still only working 1 day a week. And that's US dollars for you guys that are down under. So it's a couple more.
Like $1 billion or something in kangaroo money. All right.
But my point is, that my value to her was, over 3 years was like almost $250,000.
Yep.
And I charged a lot less than that. So, when you run through that analysis, it helps you get past the block of your own personal worth, because you're working both ends towards the middle. If you spend all your time thinking I'm more valuable, and not believing it, it's going to be harder to arrive at that center. If you value the total cost of what you're doing, like ask the client a zillion questions about what they're making now, what they could make, what they think they could make, what their budget is, what their expenses are, and analyze the crap out of that stuff, you'll suddenly realize you're really valuable.
I think that's
or sometimes maybe you realize you're not, and you think, well, thanks for your time, go talk to Fred. Right? And I do that a lot. My goal this year is to turn away 3/4 of my business. And, right now the pandemic is actually got my business. So I'm doing crazy stuff, I mean, it's just the business is so far up.
Yep.
Yeah. Jonathan Stark, one of the things in his Socratic questioning is part of the process is actually trying to convince them why they shouldn't hire you. You're almost trying to convince them not to hire you, so that then when they do, you can sort of name your price. They really, really want to hire you at that point. And that's a really tough exercise to get your head around. Like, why am I trying to push these people away almost? I mean, you're not, but you are in a sense. And once you kind of do that, then it takes that wallet piece out of it. And it makes it much easier to sort of figure out what your value is.
Well, and that's an important point. I mean, we have a lot of discussions about who the latest guru is in terms of pricing. Yep. And a couple of my favorites are two really old people, like Socrates. I mean, I think he was the best salesman ever, right? Seriously, he just asked a lot of questions and let the people sell themselves.
Yeah.
How cool is that? And then there's Dale Carnegie. How to Win Friends and Influence People. And, the classic book, the 1981 version is the one you need. Those two, Socrates obviously didn't write a book. As a matter of fact, most of what we know about him was other people writing about him. And Dale Carnegie's book, between those two, that's like 80% of selling. And then the other one, I think somebody mentioned, I forget who it was. Oh, it's some guy named Nick was talking about, helping people out. And one of my third favorite is Adam Grant's Give and Take. And if you have not read Give and Take, you must read it. You have to understand what your patterns are in giving and taking. Yep. And once you understand that, and Adam Grant talks about the 5-minute favor, which helped me a lot because I'm more of a giver. And I realized I was doing 30-minute favors when I should be doing 5-minute favors.
Can you break that rule down? That sounds good. What is this 5-minute favor?
Okay, so Adam Grant's Give and Take analyzes people who are givers people who are takers, and we all know some of both, right? We know some people that will give until they turn blue in the face, and we know some people that you just want to stay away from because all they're going to do is try to suck the room dry, right?
Yep.
And then there's matchers. I had a neighbor who was a matcher. I saved his life once, literally. And he felt he had to do something for me, so he cooked dinner for me, right? A matcher. Every time I did something for him, he had to do something for me. But Adam Grant says it's not about giving or being a giver or a taker. It's about being the right kind of giver. And he said that you need to give, but you need to give a finite amount and then sit back and see what happens. So he actually found a guy in Silicon Valley named Adam Rifkin, same first name, was the most connected person in the world. I mean, literally all of his friends included people like, Barack Obama, and like the world was connected to this guy. And the reason this happened is this guy just would do a favor for anybody, but it had to be a short one. So people kept mentioning to everybody, if you need a favor, call Adam, right? So Adam's rule was, if I can do a favor for you and I have time, I will, even if I don't know you. But it's got to be short, like an introduction, a link, a quick word of advice, and that's it. And then he walks away. And the guy's just like the center of the universe almost. So, the kind of giving is what's important. And my family's always been givers. So I just needed to shorten the giving. And once I started applying that, I mean, we've had discussions before, and I think Nick and Corey have seen me say some sarcastic comments like, if you need some leads, go walk your dog. Really, or go to the bank. Because literally I have landed clients just going out for a walk. I've landed clients when you're in the line at the bank and you have to wait 5 minutes, just ask the next person, notice something about them. It's kind of the Dale Carnegie thing. What do you do? Offer to do them a favor. I actually give out a lot of chili pepper seeds as favors, and I've landed a couple of websites because of that. I mean, I grow hot chili pepper seeds, and give them seeds away.
That's something that I totally agree with and recommend to people too. Like they see networking as a place and an event that you go to, and it's like you can be buying a coffee, and the person next to you, you hand them some sugar, and before you know it, you're finding out what that is that they do, and they have a multi-million-dollar business, and you're like, I just could have treated them like a jerk because, but it's amazing that, if you just actually pay attention and try and help people, that the sort of, I guess, possibilities and the things that can happen from that.
So I want to say, yes, I agree 100%. Giving is, I guess, a big part of my, life strategy is helping people out. I have encountered the problem of giving too much and helping too much, and it's backfired on me so many times. So I'm definitely going to read this book properly, because I remember picking it up, but not reading it. So I'll read it. I want to go back one step as well. I also agree on the pricing front. So with pricing, one of the reasons why I haven't never really had much of an issue with pricing high is because I've always looked at value from when I was doing the coaching stuff. So I would, again, the Socratic method of asking a lot of questions. That's how I do things. And I'd ask questions about people's businesses in an attempt to understand their business. And then by understanding their business, I understand how it works and how they make money. And then I look at where I will slot into that and how I will help change that. And so they're talking about, someone's talking about making $1 million a year. Even if they're just replacing their existing website, and by having a bad one, it would cost them money. Like it would impact on their $1 million a year. That's worth something, quite a bit. If they're talking about increasing that revenue and they're talking about trying to get to $2 million a year, it's like, well, you're going to play a part in them making an extra $1 million a year on top of the one that they're already doing. That's like a $2 million a year business. And so at that stage, if you were to say $20,000 for a website, that's an absolute bargain. Because, even that increase of $1 million, like $20,000 is like what point, is that 2% or something, or whatever it is? I don't know. I'm not good at doing math on the fly. But yeah, it's such a microscopic percentage. And realistically, how much would you pay to make, a lot of money? It's like you could go to half really, and it'll still be worth it. You know, and then you've got to weigh up risk and everything like that, because obviously you can't guarantee it's going to happen. There's a lot of things that are up and down the stream that impact on it. But, you know, and I've always looked at it that way. It isn't necessarily about how much. The only place where what I want to make comes into it is my minimum. So someone will come to me and say, hey, here's where I'm at, here's my business and everything. And it's like, they might be starting out, or they might be making $50,000 a year or something, and they just want a website to have a professional presence. And it's like, I can't generate enough value for you to cover how much I will want to make for a minimum to do my job. So you aren't going to give me, you know, $8,000 to $10,000 to do a website, because it's not worth it for you. And it would be stupid of you to actually do that, even if you wanted to. And so you turn those people away and say, hey, here is what you need. Here's the right solution for you. And you've helped them out because you've prevented them from making a stupid choice. But yeah, that's where my minimum comes in. And outside of that, it comes down to looking at the other person and what the value is. It doesn't matter what I think. I would never pay excessive amounts of money for a website for myself, personally. For a business, yeah. If my business was, if I had $1 million business, yeah, I think I should be spending 20 to 30,000. But I'm not in that position.
That's the difference. I think, you know, that's the whole sort of point, I guess, that I was trying to make when we sort of push past stuff that we would pay, and that's essentially because, you know, my business doesn't do, you know, 6 figures a month.
Actually, I've got to say, I paid $14,000 for a website about 10 years ago when I was running someone else's business that was doing, I think, about 2 mil. And all I did is I went to the 5 different companies and got quotes from 5 different companies, and they were the one of 2 that actually replied, and they were at 14,000, and the other person was 30,000. So yeah, you know, it's you know, it does, our influence, our experiences influence our perception heavily. So and you need to go into leader. So
I think that was pretty good. I think we've kind of gone past the hour or so that I was expecting. It's been amazing.
Well, yeah.
So I think, I don't know, looking forward to I think we should probably wrap this one up. Just giving us some sort of stuff we can sort of think about next time. And
I didn't mean to put the kibosh on it. I just had
no.
I'm the only one that's probably here in the States, so I just had to go because, you know, it's pretty late here. But I loved it. I loved every bit of it. So if you do it again,
I've got work to do. So
I know.
I've got a sick daughter, so time to go be a dad.
But thank you everyone for coming along to this first one. I hopefully get to see some of your faces again, and I'm going to share this in with the group. And I think people have made some good suggestions, so I'll tag in some of the books and the things that they've said and mentioned. And yeah, awesome. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank
you guys. Thanks, Sonia.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Beck.
Nice to see you. Bye.
Nice, Mike. See ya.